Hello. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
I mean, is my voice okay? Or it's very low?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll start in 5 minutes. Let students join. Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, as said in last session, in the earlier sessions, that we will have a, first let us learn the basic things like, what is an operating system? What is a high level language? What is a low level language? What are the differences? What do you mean by object oriented programming and programming? Language processors, interpreter, compiler. What do you mean by all this? Assembler. Then we will start with Python. Then we will start with the history of Python, then the features of Python. Then likewise, we will cover the next Python sessions. Okay. Today we will start about the basic prerequisites to learn any programming language. It's not only for Python. To learn any programming language, these are essential, right? Okay. Now, see, I am thinking that even the students are from non-IT background are learning this Python. So just for them, I want to give some basic essential things which are required. Okay. When I speak, say, when I say in the class, saying that, when Python isn't interpreted or Python isn't compiled or Python is compiled plus interpreter based language or scripting, people doesn't understand. What do you mean by interpreter, sir? What do you mean by compilation? So all that, in order to understand, I just want to give some brief, what do you say, basic essentials to learn any programming language. That's the idea behind this, to cover the prerequisites or the essentials, I can say. Now, so let me explain about operating systems. How many of you know, like, what is the use of operating system or what is an operating system? So it's not just definition. Practically, you should be able to understand what exactly the operating system is and what and how it is going to serve the purpose of. Yeah. So what is the use of operating system and how it's going to serve our purpose? So likewise, you should be able to understand the operating system. Okay. So let me explain. Say I have hardware. Now, the only hardware will not help you to complete your task. Let's say that you have anything like laptop or desktop or even mobile phone. Okay, if you have only hardware device, how will you ask your system to do some task? You cannot say, because you don't know its language. Any hardware system can only understand zeros and ones. It cannot understand any other programming language. It understands only binary language, which is which will be in zeros and ones combination. You got it? So you should have an intermediate person who can translate your requirement to hardware specific. Your hardware is something like CPU. I am speaking about CPU. Let's say that I want to add A plus B. You cannot ask directly the CPU, can you please add A plus B? No, it doesn't work like that. So you should be able to write a program, compile that program. Where is that compiler? On top of operating system. You got it? So operating system is nothing but an interface. It's an interface between user and hardware. Let's say if you take this, okay, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen. Let's say now this is your, 1 second. Let's say this is your software, this is your hardware, this is your hardware. This is your hardware and this is your operating system, OS, and this is your system software. See, I'll explain in detail. This is your application software, whatever it is, some software. Okay, I'm just explaining some software, system software or application software. Application software and users, user one, user 2, user 3. Likewise, it goes. Okay, user n. See, this is your hardware. Now, on top of your hardware, you install operating system. Once you install operating system, when you boot your machine, it will show Windows booting, something like that, or Linux. Linux, how many of you know about the Linux operating system? So Linux, once it boots, right, on top of it, you use application softwares and system softwares, or you can say application software. Once Windows is booted, then only you switch on your video player or your browser, anything. You got it. Now let's say that you want to add a plus b. You will use a C compiler and you write some program and you compile it. You get an object file or exe file that you give it to the system. System will execute and it will give you a plus b. So who is going to perform that A plus B? Your hardware, your CPU. CPU is going to perform A plus B and it's going to give it for you. So who is the interface between you and the hardware, CPU? Operating system is the interface between user and hardware. How many of you understood and how many of you not understood? Please let me know, I'll explain again.
Sir, I didn't understand.
You didn't understand. Sure? You want me to explain again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, what I am asking you, let's say that an operating system is an interface means mediator or translator between end user and hardware. Hardware is nothing but your CPU, memory management, everything. Your hardware device that you physically see in front of your eyes. Have you understood this part?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, so, sir, you are saying that operating system is interface between end user and hardware. Now, what is this operating system? Operating system is a small software, which will translate user requirements to CPU and CPU responds to user. Let's say that I'm going to browse or I'm going to start Mozilla or Firefox or Chrome. Okay, so once I start Chrome, see, it has to be open in front of you, or I want to play a movie. I will click on the media player. See, media player just does not open like that. Somebody has to process for you on behalf of you got it. So when I click on media player, the request, see, user will click on media player software. The operating system will take that request and it will be given it for the CPU will perform that. It will open for you, it will allocate some resource, it will allocate some memory, everything it does, and then it will pop up for you in front of you, and it will response will be given it for the operating system. Operating system will display in front of you that you can see. So whatever task you are doing, say let's say I want to open Microsoft Word or Notepad, you try to open it here, but operating system is not going to do that. That will be done, means the request will be taken to the CPU and CPU will open for you and the response will be given for the operating system, and then operating system will display for you in front of you in the operating system. Have you got this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You got know what I'm trying to say. See, nobody can ask CPU directly because CPU can understand only binary information. That is the reason whenever you install some software, it will be in exe format. What do you mean by exe? It consists of zeros and ones. Installers, have you ever seen installers will have .exe on Windows? And when you double click, it says installing, means it's that software is having some kind of purpose, that once the user interacts with it, it will interact with the CPU and CPU will respond for that, and that will be captured by the operating system or that application software, and that will be displayed. You got it?
Yes, sir.
No, the other person was saying that I did not understand. That person got
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So now I can say an operating system can be defined as an interface between user and hardware. It is responsible for execution of all the processes. Okay, now what do you mean by a process? Let's say that I am running, see, you are able to see my screen, right? This is Paint is one process running now. And this one more thing, like Zoom meeting is another process running now. See, Zoom process is one more running now. How can you see all these things? Go to here, say processes. One second. One second. Start menu toolbar. You have something like processes, right? Task manager. See, all these are tasks, and these are processes. See, all are running. So who is executing all this? CPU is executing. How it is executing? See, it is saying point A, 8, 11, 2 means in a round robin way. The CPU should just, pardon?
Blank is coming, sir. Blank. There is no readings in the
Oh, yeah. I have to
numbers.
share. I have to share the whole
Yeah, okay, fine.
screen. Now,
Okay, got it, sir.
yeah. So
Yes.
the CPU will work like this. So if I say I have opened this many processes, if CPU spends its time only on any disk or something, whatever it is, you let's say that the CPU is spending only time executing that task, then you can see only paintbrush. But I don't want to be like that. I want to do parallelly paintbrush. I want to have a meeting parallelly. I want to have a wordpad parallelly. So the CPU will work in such a way that user cannot identify that it is executing parallelly all the things in a round robin way. It depends on operating system algorithm implementation. That and all we don't know. We don't want. Now we have to understand only one thing. You know what is a process? Process is something which is active in OS for now. That I call it as a process. Clear? You know what is a process? Anything is a process. Whichever you have started is a process. Sir, you have opened only paintbrush, but you see list one dozen here. Why all this? These are background processes. These are background processes. Without means I have scheduled whenever I boot my operating system, without my knowledge or without me again asking them to start, it will start by themselves only in the background. Now, don't go to that level. Just understand what is a process. Understand, you guys, what do you mean by process in an operating system? See, man, if I execute something, let's say that CMD. This is a process. This is a process. This is one process. Like that, anything that is active is nothing but a process. Now, how many of you got? How many of you did not get? Please let me know. I will explain again. Can you speak?
Got it, sir.
No doubt, sir.
You got right. Yes. So in an operating system, so you have an application software and system software. What do you mean by application software? Application software comes under your browsers, video player, all this comes under application software. You got it? Database, games, anything. Whereas system programming is nothing but your shells. Like, this is the shell programming, there is a shell, some editor and all that, which are very specific to hardware. Means like, which will interact very close to hardware. Leave about that. Just understand what is an OS, how it is going to serve our purpose. Now, my question is, if I am installing a compiler or interpreter, compiler is nothing but a translator. It will translate your program to hardware specific program or mission understandable program. user understandable program to mission understandable program. So where it will be installed? If I am installing a compiler, where it will be installed? Anybody can answer?
Operating
Yes, it will install as an application software or system software on operating system. Either it can be under system software or application software, and it will be installed on operating system. You got it? Just to
Yes.
make you understand this, I explained all this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, see,
Yes, sir.
now the main functions of operating system, you have process management. See, let's say that I open paintbrush. That is one process running, right? So what this operating system will do, it will allocate or it will start the process. Whenever user want to stop it or whenever I click on this, it will stop the process. Means who is allocating and deallocating or starting and terminating or deleting the process? Operating system. Operating system is trying to start and stop the process. So as part of your operating system, there is one sub module called process management. This process management is going to, or this is responsible to start and stop the process. Okay, there is one more sub module called memory management, which will allocate and deallocate memory for that process. Okay, see, as a human being, I want to stay on earth. I should have some space to stay or stand, right? Stand or sleep or jump or whatever I want to do, I should have some space, right? So that space in the system for any process to execute, it should have some space. That space is nothing but memory. Every time you see, if you don't have memory, your system will hang, or your system will not respond. You say that some memory issue is there, means I have to increase the RAM size and all. Okay, so for any process to execute, it needs some resources. One of the main resources is memory. You got it, right? So for any process, you should have memory to run that process. Got it?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, you should have CPU also one of the resource. See, your process is in memory. What you will do with that? You can't do anything. CPU has to execute those instructions. Then only you can see paintbrush. See, first thing is that when I open paintbrush, memory management will allocate something. Process management will start the process by mapping that memory, and then CPU will execute that instructions in that memory. See, everything is a software. Don't consider as an paintbrush or a movie as Rajnikant and all. No, everything is a small software. That's it. Even playing movie, Rajnikant movie will be in software only, in memory management only. By CPU only has to execute. You got it right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes. Next, file management. See, what is the use of this file management? Let's say that you want to save some files. How you will save? So this subsystem, file management subsystem, will take care of it. How do you how you want to save it? Whether you want to save it as a WordPad, Notepad, or text file, or device file, anything, whatever it is, executable file, whatever it will understand that format and it will save and it will retrieve for you. You want to save your CV or resume, what you will do, you will type and you will save it and you will keep it. Tomorrow again you will boot and you will open it. You will boot the system and you will open it. It will open. How? Who is going to take care of it? Your file management is going to take care of it. I am not going in depth file system and all. I am not speaking. Just want to give a brief on OS and how it's going to work. You got it right? Likewise, you have security, command interpretation, job accounting, device management, many subsystems. All these subsystems are part of kernel. What is a kernel? Kernel is an which will interact with hardware directly. Okay, leave about that. and we will speak just 5 minutes about this operating system, and we will close this topic, and we'll have some, any question and answers, and then we will jump to next topic. Okay. See, as I said, once again, device manager. Likewise, we have security module. Security module. Likewise, we have many things. Okay. Now, basically, this operating system can be divided into two parts. One is shell. Another one is kernel. Okay, shell and kernel. This is nowhere related with your Python. Just for your information, I am just trying to explain this. Then we will move to just 5 minutes. Just to give you a brief understanding about OS. This is your hardware. These are your users. So when I say OS is divided into two parts, shell and kernel, shell is an interface between your kernel and user. Kernel is an interface between your shell and hardware. So this kernel consists of all these submodules: process management, memory management, and then file management, device manager, securities, job schedulers, everything, scheduler, everything. All this will be part of your kernel. You got it? So when you try to install some browser or whatever it is, it will be installed in the user space, not in the kernel space. Kernel space consists of all system software which will directly interact with the hardware. So your application software cannot directly interact with the hardware. It has to interact with the kernel, and kernel will interact with your hardware, and the response will be given to the kernel, and kernel will give it for the application software. And you can see as an end user. How many of you understood this? Just want to say this and stop about operating system. Tell me if you have any questions.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Clear? Very clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we will go for programming languages. Now we'll go with programming languages. See, what is a programming language? Can anybody define it? Just now I said, right? Any task has to be done. It can be done only through CPU. Now, my question is, how will you make that CPU to understand your requirement? It is only possible through programming. Means you will write some instructions and you will give it to the CPU, and your CPU will do that and it display for you. You got it? This is how it has to work. Now let's say that I don't know the CPU language. What you will do? What will you do, man? Say, let's say that you have one, say, Spanish guy, and you know only English, and he doesn't know English. What will you do?
Translator.
Yes. So that translation you need that translation. I will tell you types of translators or whatever language, whatever translators or processors or whatever you call it. I'll explain now. Basically, the programming language is nothing but a set of instructions. Whether those set of instructions are high level set of instructions or low level set of instructions, let us not bother. We just define it as a set of instructions that are compiled together to perform a specific task by the CPU. You got it? Set of instructions that are compiled together What do you mean by compiled? You will come to know very soon. Compiled together to perform a specific task by the computer or CPU. Okay, I am saying CPU. How many of you know what is CPU? You guys know what is CPU?
Yes,
Central
sir.
Processing Unit.
Central
Central
processing
processing unit.
Yes, central processing unit. I understand. But have you ever seen on the motherboard? You see a big bunch of thing a processor.
Yes.
Yes, that's nothing but your CPU. That is heart of your system. If a system, if a human doesn't have heart, what he'll die. Similarly, if you remove that CPU and if you sell this laptop or whatever processor or hardware or whatever system, I mean desktop system, what it will happen? Nothing is there in that. It doesn't have heart. What I have to do with that without heart? So that's why every time I call it an CPU. So who are the producers of CPU? Which companies are going to give CPU? Can anybody answer?
Intel.
Intel. One more. Intel, everybody know, man. Tell me one more.
Ryzen.
Pardon?
AMD.
AMD. Yes. Yes. Correct. So these are these people will produce the CPU hardware. Okay. Now, so we will classify this programming language into three types. One is high level language. One is high level language. One second. Okay. Just a second. High level language. Keyboard issue. High level language. See, I will tell you middle level language. Some keyboard issue I am facing. See, high level language, middle level language, and low level language. Not flow. This is low. Some keyboard issue I'm facing. You got it right. I mean, what I mean to say, there are three types. You can classify programming language into three types. One is high level language, middle level language, low level language. You got it. So high level language is the language which is closer to the human being. Let's say that your Java or Python or PHP or anything, Perl, anything, any language which can be understood by user in English words. That is nothing but your high level language. Why it is high level language? Because it is human readable. Let's say print. Print, I am Sai. Print, I am teaching Python. So what it says, I am asking the system to print that this sentence. You got it? So that's nothing but your high level language. You can also include C++ in high level language. Clear? What do you mean by high level language?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, middle level language. Middle level language is something like assembly language. In assembly language, user doesn't write a print, scan, or in the input something. These kind of statements he cannot write. He will write mnemonics. You know what is a mnemonic? Any electronic students here? Move A comma B, add B comma C, something. You know, you will have this thing sub, E comma J, something, NOP, NOP, these kind of mnemonics. You know, these mnemonics are specific to the processor. These mnemonics are specific to the processor. Means user can understand to not a very high level language, but it's a little bit slow. It will in between the hardware and user. So he has to have a chart. He will write these mnemonics and he will use an assembler to translate this to the machine language. What is machine language? Machine language will be in the zeros and ones combination. Machine language will be in zeros and ones. You got it? So for high level language, you will use compiler or interpreter to translate to machine language. For middle level language, they use assemblers to translate to machine level language. See, anything, even if you want to give sweet for the CPU, you have to translate to machine level language and then give it to you. Likewise, you should have a translator to convert that high level language or middle level language to what? Mission level language. You got it? Mission language. That mission language will be in the combinations of zeros and ones. Clear? You got it? What is
Yes,
low
sir.
level language? Low level language is a binary language. It will be in combinations of zeros and ones. Now you got the difference between high level language, middle level language, low level language. So what I am trying to explain here, computer languages can be classified into three things. These three. First one is high level language, second one is middle level language, third one is low level language. High level language is human understandable language. It will be in some kind of English where users can, by reading it, they can understand very easily. That's a high level language. If you want to translate that high level language to mission language, you need to use compiler or interpreter. That is about high level language. If you want, you can also have a middle level language, but it will not be in pure English like how it is in high level language. You need to have a mnemonics which is specific to the architecture or CPU. If you are using 8085, those mnemonics are different. If you are using 8086, those mnemonics are different. If you are using 8051 controller, those mnemonics are different. So architecture specific instructions you need to use, and you need to add or subtract or do some task, and then use an assembler which will convert this mnemonics to machine language, and that will be executed by your CPU. And low level language is directly a machine language that everybody knows. Tell me any doubts.
No, sir.
No, only one lady I hear. The rest of the people,
No, sir.
everybody
No,
has to
sir.
understand. Everybody
No,
has to
sir.
understand. Yes. If you understand, I am very happy. If you don't understand, please let me know. I will explain again and again. I'll make you, until you understand. I'm not going to leave. Clear? Now,
Yes, sir.
now,
Yes, sir.
see, basically what is happening?
Yes, sir.
Now what you got, whether you do any programming language, our requirement is that we need to convert it into machine language or machine codes. You got it? Binary language. That target, whatever the source is, high level or mid level, but always target is binary language or machine language, which will be in zeros and ones. Okay, zeros and ones. One more important thing. Generally, in companies, right, they say that source code, source code, source code. What do you mean by that source code? If you have a Python source code, means Python based
Language.
application, something you have coded, that is nothing but your source code. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Source code means what? Whatever you have coded. Let's say that I want to add 10 numbers. You have written a program. That is nothing but your source code. That you have written in Java, Java source code. You have written in Python, Python source code. You have written in C, C source code. That's nothing but your source code. Okay. See, do you want to explain the differences between high level and low level language? I don't think we need all this, because our target is just to understand what is the purpose of, the background, basic things that you want to understand Python before understanding Python. So if I say Python is a general purpose high level language, now you understand what is high level language. You got it right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Or if you want, I'll just make a small, explain that. Okay. So high level languages are always user friendly, but low level languages are mission friendly, because see, this nobody can understand straight away. Whereas high level language like print statement, anybody can understand. Anybody can understand, because high level languages are user friendly. Low level languages are not user friendly. They are mission friendly. See, high level languages are more, high level languages are easy to understand, but low level languages are not easy to understand. That's what user friendly. So high level languages are not highly memory efficient. Low level languages are memory efficient. I will tell you what memory efficient. When we discuss about Python, garbage collection, I will explain this memory efficiency. You got it? You have to remember this. What do you mean by memory efficiency? We will discuss in Python in detail. What do you mean by memory? Python is one of the strongest programming language, which is efficient, memory efficient. It has a highly GCE compatible. You got it? See, it's very tough to debug this kind of programs, but it is very easy to debug high level programs. High level languages are portable. This is most important. That's the reason I want to explain the differences. See, if I want to understand very carefully, this is very important. Understand very carefully. See, I want to program something. Okay. Now I want to run this program on Windows machine, and Linux machine, or on AMD machine, or Intel machine. You got it? See, this is okay. Anyway, you have to do it architecture specific. If it is an Intel based processor, you get that sheet, and based on that, you write these instructions and you compile this or assemble it. That means assemble this into machine language, and then you will give it to the processor. This is okay. Whereas high level language is portable in the sense you just write a program and compile it to any target, and you can run anywhere. You got it? But here it is not the case. Means this is highly portable. This is not highly portable. You have to rewrite the program again, but it is not like that. If you have a target compiler, you will just compile it to the target and you can run it. Clear? You mean what? Did you understand what you mean by portable?
Yes, sir.
Why I am saying this, Python is a portable language. Means if you have Python code for Windows, and if you want to run this code on other platforms such as Linux, Unix, and Mac, then we need not change it. We can run this code. I will tell you how it's going to run. For that, I am saying it is portable. High level languages are portable. Mostly, not all are portable. Most of the high level languages are portable. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Understood what do you mean by portable? Portable means you can run it in any platform. You code once and compile it and run in any platform. Java is portable. See, here you need assembler to translate. Here you need compiler or interpreter. So this is widely used programming language nowadays. And one more thing, see, can you develop a game writing such kind of programs, assembly programs? No, assembly programs you cannot write. You will take years together, and finally we will die also developing these things. So it will take that many years to develop a game in assembly programming language. Whereas in high level language, you just in few lines we can develop a game. So that's the advantage of high level and low level languages, or we can say the differences between high level and low level languages. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Further, you can classify high level language into procedure oriented programming language and object oriented programming language. See, I have classified programming language into high level, low level, mid level. Now, see, in some classifications, they consider mid level and low level under same. Okay, in some classifications, they will consider mid level and low level belongs to same classification. But I am just to understand you better, right? I made it high level, mid level, and low level. Okay, under high level, you have C, C++, whatever it is. Mid level, you have assembly languages. Low level, you have mission language or mission codes. Now, these high level languages are classified into procedural oriented language and object oriented programming language. What do you mean by procedural programming language? Anybody has any idea on that? Procedural programming language. Anybody has an idea on procedural programming language? Or object oriented programming language?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I'll explain what is procedural programming language. See, procedural programming language will be implemented using procedures. That procedures can be the procedure can be an function, subroutine, anything. Means you will divide the program into functions or subroutines, and you will implement that as a function or subroutine, and you will write a complete program using those functions. That is nothing but procedural approach. Means you are going to divide a complex task into small subtasks and implement those subtasks and then join them. Is nothing but, or integrate them and integrate them as a whole. You got it right? So that is nothing but procedural programming language. So it
Can you
follows.
repeat again, sir?
Okay, I'll explain anyway again. See, it follows top-down approach in the sense, listen carefully. Now, okay, I will do one thing. I want to design a game. Okay, the game is something like this. What is that? The game is something like this. Let me explain the game. Wait. See, the game is something like this. Boy is standing. I am designing a game now. Got it? So a boy is standing and balloons are flying. Balloons are flying. Okay. He is shooting the balloons. He or she shooting the balloons. Like this. They are shooting the balloons. Now the count will increase, or his score will increase. Score will increase. Let's say 0, 1, 2, 100, something like this. Score will increase. Time will decrease. Time will decrease. Say 99, something like that. It will come down. You got the idea on how I am implementing this game? The balloons are flying. I am shooting the balloons. Score is increasing. Time is decreasing. This is the implementation. If I am going with procedural approach, I will write a function to fly the balloon. I will write a function to increase the score. I will write a function to decrease the time. I will write a function to user hitting the balloons. This is nothing but I am going to divide the complete project or a complete complex thing into small functions or subtasks. I am going to allocate that. Now, when I execute, what will happen? I will call those functions. That's it. The system will be completely implemented. Did you get now what I'm trying to do?
Yes, sir.
Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So I am using functions or subroutines to develop any application. Now this approach I am going to follow as a top-down approach, means taking the complex problem, dividing that into small pieces, and then integrating again back is nothing but your top-down approach. Okay. So in this way of, with this approach, there are some drawbacks. Your application may not be so secured, and it may take a lot of time to develop. As the application grows, right? Your source code, you will lose your control on your source code. These are some of the drawbacks with procedural languages. Example for procedural languages: Fortran, Algo, COBOL, Basic, Pascal, and C are examples of your procedural programming languages. Now, coming to object-oriented programming language. This is the most important programming language, which is very close to a real-time implementation. So all the programming is done based on the objects or OOPS concepts. OOPS means object-oriented programming concepts like inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, object, class, abstraction, all this. So all this we use and develop the application. What is the advantage of this? We are going to bind the data and methods in a class and create objects and call them. Wait, don't get confused. I will explain in detail when we speak in the Python. Object oriented programming, I think most of you may not be having idea. If I explain now, it will be an OOPS class. So I just want to introduce OOPS is nothing but any programming done based on those concepts. OOPS concepts is nothing but OOPS approach, means object oriented programming approach. Okay, this will follow bottom top, not top to bottom, bottom to top approach. Okay. How many of you understood this procedural versus object oriented?
Yes, sir.
So what all will be supported? Python, C#, Java, PHP, Perl, anything will be supported with OOPS concepts. So we will discuss in detail OOPS concepts. Yes. Now we will go with the language processes. Language processes. Just a minute. So compiler, what do you mean by compiler? Okay. So compiler, what do you mean by
Which
compiler?
concept you said?
Converts
Huh?
higher level language to machine level language.
It will not directly, see, few compilers will not directly compile to the machine level language, but yes, in the as per definition, you are right. So what I mean to say, now this compiler will take source code. That source code can be in high level language. It can be a C compiler, which is in C based source code. It can be a Java compiler, which takes a Java as a source code. Python compiler, which takes Python as source code and compile it to the object code or machine language. It's nothing but a compiler. You got it? Any questions? Any questions with respect to compiler?
No, sir.
No. Assembler. So it will take your assembly language as a source code and converts that into machine language or object code. That is nothing but your assembler. Like how I have written, just mnemonics I have written right earlier. Those mnemonics were taken as a source and it will convert that into binaries. Binary means zeros and ones, and that will be given for the CPU and it will be executed. So that's nothing but your assembler. Okay, interpreter. Okay, how many of you know what is an interpreter? Interpreter. See the difference between compiler and interpreter. Compiler will take complete source code and it will compile the source code into machine language, and if it finds any errors, it will not convert that into machine language. It will throw errors for you. Means it will ask you to fix those issues first. Let's say that I have written some C language. Okay, let me see whether I have my C here. Okay, just a second. Just want to see whether I have, C compiler or any compiler. So what it does, it will, let's say that I have written some C programming and I am giving it for the GNU C compiler. GNU means Linux C compiler. Now what it has to do? It has to compile that into object code or machine language, right? So I have written some syntax issues. Syntax means instead of writing, one second, instead of writing, let it boot. We will see that. Notepad. Instead of writing something like this, see, like include h print okay. Here I have done some mistakes. I have forgotten to close this brackets and I am not giving semicolon. So it will throw an error. It will not directly compile. See, I am one more thing. I am using some reverse brackets. So this is an error. These are the syntactical errors you see. Syntactical errors means program syntax you are not following. There are some rules or syntaxes that you must follow in order to make that understand by your system, but you are not following. You have to keep semicolon and you should not use that brackets properly. You have to use, you are using closed brackets. All this you have to follow properly. Printf, print, f, you are not using it. You have to use f. So all this you have to use properly. Now if you compile, it means you have to rectify all these mistakes. Now it will work. You got it right. Now you give it to your compiler. Your compiler will convert this into machine code, and that can be used to execute. You got it right. What I'm trying to now explain now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So your compiler will convert complete source code. If you are using 1,000 lines of source code, it will compile, means it will convert everything at once to object code. It will convert all your source code into object code at once, provided if it is an syntactically free or error free. If it has any syntactical issues or errors, then it will ask you to fix them first. Once you fix, and again if you compile or recompile, it will convert that. If your all issues are fixed, it will convert them to your object code or machine code. That is the main function of the, what is the function, main function of the compiler. It will convert your complete source code to machine code. Clear? That is the function of compiler. Interpreter will not do that. Interpreter will execute line by line. First it will take this line and it will interpret. Okay, this fellow is giving proper syntax, so you have to execute this, and execute, and it will display. And then it will go to second line and it will execute and it will display. Then it goes to third line, it will execute and it will display. Let's say that in fourth line you are using some miss or not proper syntax, then it will display syntactical error. See, until it finds syntactical error, it will execute, but once it finds, it will terminate. That's the difference between compiler and interpreter. Interpreter will run your program line by line until it finds issue or syntactical problem. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is the difference. That is the major difference between compiler and interpreter. What are the compiler based programming languages?
C.
Java.
C++,
Java.
Java, .NET. Don't say Python. I will tell you, Python is between interpreter and compiler. Okay. Java is also between interpreter and compiler. I will tell you. Okay. Again, it depends on the application. Yeah, I'll just let us speak only confined to Python. Python is neither compiler nor interpreter. It is implementation of both. Okay. That's the thing. Compiler, interpreter. So a compiler is a program that converts the entire source code of programming language into executable machine code for CPU. An interpreter takes source program and runs it line by line, translating each line as it comes to it. Okay. Compiler takes large amount of time to analyze the entire source code, but the overall execution time of program is comparatively faster. See, it has to take the complete source code, analyze it. So it will take a long time to analyze. You got it? But execution at once it does, because it has converted everything into one single file as an executable. Executable, it will take very less time to execute. But interpreter, it is not like that. For interpreting line by line, it will take a lot of time because it has to interpret line by line. But this interpreting this line by line, it will take less time. But execution part, it will take a lot of time. That is the main difference between compiler and interpreter. So compiler generates error message as a whole at once. But interpreter, it will execute till it finds error messages or issues or syntactical errors. Compiler requires a lot of memory to generate machine code, but interpreter doesn't need that much memory. Clear? What are the examples for interpreter?
Yes,
Somebody
sir.
has to say now. Tell me, what is the example for interpreter? You know, Bash shell script in Linux. It's an any scripting is an interpreter based. Let me try. So actually, my password I have to. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Let me try. How many of you worked with Linux? Mhm.
Oh, it.
No, I think I forgot my password. So, I mean, like in next session, we will work on Python. I mean, we'll work only on Linux, or we have both Windows and Linux. I'll try to recover my password. Okay. Any doubts in the session?
No.
No, sir.
No, sir.
So now, assuming that you know the prerequisites, means like what is a compiler, what is a high-level programming language. You got it right. I mean, like what is been operating system. What are the main functions of operating system? All these things, you know now. Now we can go with Python, right? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just a second. So shall we continue from tomorrow?
Okay, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
We'll start freshly only. Okay.
What about attendance?
Pardon?
What about attendance?
I don't know. You have to ask the
Attendance.
coordinators, I guess. You have to ask coordinators, I guess. Only technical anything, whatever I teach. If you have questions, you can ask me, or you can still ask me in WhatsApp. I'll explain. I can answer all those. So like we'll continue from tomorrow. I mean, what time would be better tomorrow? You just discuss with the coordinator. We'll have. Okay, let me ask Harshit. Just a second.
Thank you all for attending the Python class. Tomorrow I will inform by 10 the next class. Every weekend we will be having Python lecture series. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And attendance are taken. Don't worry about attendance. We are taking.
Thank you, sir.